Let's bring in Chad Millman, Sharper Square, CCO Action Network. All odds provided by FanDuel. So the Eagles -1.5 are the favorite. So I'm going to lay out who I like and why. And I say this with no real conviction because I think it's a cliche now. Philadelphia's got more good players, but I get Andy Reid and Mahomes off a bye, virtually unbeatable. But I'm going to throw this out because I really felt strongly about Philadelphia early, but I don't want to outthink the room, but you do get more information. That Warren Sharp on social media today put out a graph of Jalen Hurts pre-injury and Jalen Hurts post-injury. Post-injury, he throws no deep balls and nothing to the right. Steve Spagnuolo's been in this game for 2 decades or more. He knows exactly that before I saw it. So Hurts is not the same player. He is not MVP Hurts. He is hurt and limited Jalen Hurts. I thought against the Niners, he had no touch. The short stuff was low. The deep stuff was long. I thought he played really poorly. Now, the Niners defense has a lot of say in that, but he was absolutely off. Whereas I thought Mahomes with a severe injury looked great. So, rest is, I thought he looked fantastic mostly against Cincinnati. So as we get closer to the game, I think to myself, am I going to bet against Andy Reid in a bye with Mahomes against a quarterback who could be playing at about 70%? It's hard. I like dogs. I'd probably take Kansas City in the points. Sharper Square.
Remains to be seen, Colin, because of what you just said. I'm not trying to waffle. It's a really interesting game, but Wise Guys came all in on the Eagles as soon as this line opened. The line opened Eagles +1.5. For the record, Sunday night, I'm sitting on my couch here in Connecticut. You remember beautiful West Hartford. Yeah. I go into my phone. I'm on the FanDuel app. I bet the Eagles +1.5. 15 minutes later, it's Kansas City +2.5. All the money came in on the Eagles. It's pretty much settled down. Like it got up to 2. It was at 2 for 4 or 5 days. Now it's at 1.5. Wise Guys bought back a little on Kansas City. The recommendation I would give, if you want to bet the Eagles, give it a few days. Because over the next 4 or 5 days, that is when the public is going to come in on Kansas City. That is what books are expecting. You'll be able to get the Eagles at -1, pick, whatever it is. You won't get them at his dog again, but you'll get them at pick. So if you like the Eagles, wait a few minutes. If you like the Chiefs, take them now. You're going to get both sides of it. I've heard more professionals liking the Eagles because of the roster that you just talked about. But they are all very wary right now that the number has stayed where it is, that it hasn't gone back up to 2. Because they're waiting to see how Jalen Hurts performs in practices over the week. And until that happens, every bet I'm making is about something else. It's about the total. It's about MVP. It's about rushing props. It's player props. It's officiating props. It's everything but the side because it's really hard to handicap it right now.
I would probably take the over. And again, I generally like dogs and unders because the masses take the over, but 50.5. I think my takeaway is Philadelphia, since they're such a hot starting team, at one point could lead in this game. And that means Mahomes will throw more. In fact, I think Mahomes will throw over 40 times a game. He can go deep. He can go seam. He can go short. They can go clever. Andy Reid bye. 50.5 seems like a reasonable over bet to me, Sharper Square.
Totally sharp. That's what the sharps are doing. The money has been coming in on the over. It was at 50 for about 15 seconds on Sunday night. Got bet down to 49.5. And since then, the money has all been on the over. All professional money. For the Super Bowl, early money is professional money. Because the public, there's so much buildup. It really comes to a crescendo as you get into Friday, Saturday, Sunday. So this number has moved from 49.5 back to 50, 50.5, 51. It will get to 51.5, 52 by the game. I think at 52 is when wise guys are going to start buying the under. Most of them have it power rated about 51, 51 and a half. So they're still buying a little bit of the over. I'm going to say this though. I'm going to say one thing. I bet the under. And I know I'm on the wrong side of this, like from a professional perspective, but it speaks to how you think about the game. The Eagles have the best sack rate in the NFL, the best pressure rate in the NFL. They are elite against number one receivers. They have an offensive line that has 2 Hall of Famers and is a dominant rush game. If you like the Eagles here, then you have to think about the fact the game script is going to, and Jalen Hurts may be hurt. So you have to think about the fact, are they going to dominate the Chiefs offensive line? Are they going to dominate the Chiefs defensive line? Are they going to control the ball? Are they going to keep Patrick Mahomes off the field? All that, to me, says you take the under. And I can't understand why the professionals love the over as much as they do.
Sometimes I feel strongly about the way a game will look. Georgia TCU. I thought TCU emptied the emotional bag against Michigan. I thought they'd get crushed against Georgia, and they did. That one was easy to read. College is often easier. I do feel something, though, about this game. If you're Andy Reid, Philadelphia has trailed rarely. They've been in close games infrequently. Even their playoff games are routes. So if I'm Andy Reid with 2 weeks, I win the coin flip, I take it. I want to score first. My fear, if I'm Andy Reid, is they bleed us. They run the ball we can't stop, and Mahomes sits on the bench. So I can see Kansas City going, we're going to unload some exotics early. We want to play with a lead. Now, Mahomes leading or trailing is the same quarterback. The numbers show you. That's why he's the best. A score is irrelevant. It's not irrelevant. Jalen Hurts playing behind doesn't feel like the same quarterback playing with a lead. So the first half spread, I believe Kansas City feels it's essential to play in front. So Philadelphia cannot lean on a profound running game. Kansas City's running game is hit and miss. I don't think Philadelphia feels like if we don't get a lead, we have to alter the way we play. So that makes me feel like Kansas City will be dynamic early in this game. Is there any line or any belief by the Sharps that justify my feeling?
Well, the Sharps like the Eagles in the first half. They like the Eagles on the money line in the first half. They like the Eagles as short favorites, about -1.5 is some of the numbers I'm seeing right now. You can get the Eagles at -0.5 in the first half. The truth is the Eagles are a dominant first half team, and they're even better in the second quarter than they are in the first quarter. And in 16 wins this year, they were ahead in the first half in 14 of them. So the game script, I agree with you. The Chiefs get the ball. The Chiefs win the toss. They got to get the ball and they got to score. But I don't think that scares the Eagles because there's a lot of time, and it's not like they're going to have to put the ball in Jalen Hurts' hand at the end of the game if he's injured and defeat a Steve Spagnuolo defense who is so smart and so good at pressuring late in the game. They'll just keep running the ball. Like it could be 10-7 at the end of the first half, and it still is going to be fine for them.
So I'll throw a number at you or a theory. So this team was not the same team with Gardner Minshew. And they certainly, as a coaching staff, don't think they can win if Hurts gets hurt and Minshew goes against Patrick Mahomes. Like, they know that, right? It's not like Kansas City thinks they can win with Chad Henne. But, Minshew with this loaded roster couldn't win games. So when I look at the over-under on rushing yards, Jalen Hurts 49.5, I can see them being conservative with Jalen Hurts and saying, hey, listen, we'll run him late if we're forced to, but we're not running him early. I could see them being conservative. I would probably take, and by the way, if they did trail late, they probably wouldn't run Jalen Hurts anyway.
No.
So 49.5 rushing yards for Jalen Hurts. I think I'd take the under there. Is that sharp or square?
most of the props have been pretty much in line with what the wise guys think they should be. I would say the over is the sharp play. Again, because people are worried about his shoulder. And you pointed it out at the start of the show. He just looked wobbly on his throws, right? When he was most effective in that game against the Niners before it was pretty much decided is when he was running the ball. And that's also when he feels more comfortable. And that's how you start to loosen up a defense to give yourself more opportunities to throw downfield when you aren't that comfortable with your accuracy because you might be a little bit injured. So I'd lean to the over. But again, that reveals my hand a little bit. Like when I go through all of my bets and I'm still trying to figure out where do I want to be heavy on a side, if at all, the other bets I've made are showing me what I really believe, which is I've bet Devontae Smith at 31-1 to win the MVP. I bet Miles Sanders at 25-1 to win the MVP. I bet Miles Sanders to lead the game in rushing. I bet the under, which plays to a positive game script for the Eagles. So everything about me is saying, I think I like the Eagles in this game. I'm just having a hard time pulling the trigger on the side. But same with the Jalen Hurts. Like, I think the Eagles have a dominant offensive line, and that's going to help him take advantage of holes in the defense to gain more than 49 yards.
So Kansas City doesn't get blown out when they're mostly healthy. I think it's been 32 games since they lost by more than 4. You can beat them. It's the way Buffalo and Cincinnati did. You can beat them. It's narrow. A lot of their games are closer than you think. Even their wins, they at times, as great as they are, I always had this theory that teams that are brilliant offensively, like the Warriors, they know they're brilliant, and it's hard to be urgent knowing that you can score 28 points in about 4 minutes. Kansas City, it's almost like sometimes Mahomes experiments. It's like, I'm going to try something here. So they're in, I don't see Kansas City getting blown out. I can see Philadelphia sort of bleeding the clock. And I think Miles Sanders could be a really, really like that. So what was the line you got on Miles Sanders as MVP? That's a smart take by
I got
think.
Miles Sanders at 25-1 to win MVP.
That feels like that's a good number.
Yeah, feels like a great number. I got Miles Sanders plus 150 to lead the game in rushing. And, the flip side is I also bet Travis Kelce 16-1 to win MVP. And like, these are just little flyers, like little darts I'm trying to throw. So I'm covering my bases on everything with small bites to win big, which is not normally what I would do because I just have no feel for the side. I cannot see the edge in this game in any way. Last year, the Bengals were the clear edge, right? Like, it was clear they were the side to bet on as an underdog. I don't have it for this. I just nobody does. People have an opinion, but there's no edge. Your opinion is based on how you think the game is going to play, not because the math is telling you there's an edge one way or the other.
Well, I've thought about making Blazing 5 Blazing 4, and one of the reasons is I think bettors are smarter. There's more information. There's more guys like you giving people information. That when I do Blazing 5, I've said before, there's 2 games I love every weekend, and 1 I'm pretty sure about. But I called it Blazing 5, so I have to find 2 other games.
Yeah. Honestly, you know what I've bet the most on so far in the Super Bowl? Not the sides, not the totals. I'm going to read you my list here. I've bet so far, this is my lineup. I've bet on will both teams kick a field goal of more than 33 yards. I bet no. And
I agree.
Even that, my logic plays to the Eagles winning the game. I think both coaches are aggressive play callers. I think when they're in the red zone and they have an opportunity to score, they're going to go for it on 4th downs.
Yep.
I don't think they're going to take easy field goals. I think when they're on the opposite side of the field and it's 4th and 5 from the 30-yard line, they're going to go for it. Because they know they need to be scoring a lot of points in these games. They don't value the field goal. Harrison Butker, and this is courtesy of Sean Kerner, one of our analysts, Harrison Butker only kicked a 33 or more field goal in 7 of 15 games this year, 47% of the time. Jake Elliott only did it in 33% of his games. I'm like, yeah. And every year, by the way, the wise guys, they love to bet this field goal prop. It has been for 20 years. I have bet this field goal prop. It consistently cashes. It's a great one to cash.
Also, the Mahomes factor. You hear this constantly. You just got to go for it when you face Mahomes. He scares everybody.
But that's also, to me, it's why I played the under, because while the variance could be massive because they might score more touchdowns, they also might score fewer points because they're not going for the chip shot field goals. And so there are 4-point opportunities there on a regular basis.
I think that's the best bet I've heard so far. That's my seriously. Well, the Mahomes factor. Mahomes has been so great late in so many big TV games. You almost seem like anti-analytics if you kick field goals. It's like, what are you doing? It's the second quarter. You go for it.
Totally. It's totally true. Here's another one that was really fun. This was, we talked about this today on the Favorites podcast. Over 10.5 penalties. So Carl Jeffers, who's calling the game, averages more penalties called than just about anybody else. So if you are at over 10.5, then you're actually in an advantageous position versus otherwise playing the under. And there's value on that bet. It's at plus 125 right now. But that's what's fun about the Super Bowl is, like, don't forget, you don't have to bet the side. Like, you could find 5 great bets for Blazing 5 and not have to pick a side. Of course, you can't do that because you're Colin and you get Tom Brady on your podcast breaking news. So you can't go on there and say, bet over penalties, bet, will either team kick a field goal of 33 yards and bet the no. You can't bet like, will over 2.5 players throw a pass in the game. But I'm telling you right now, my biggest bets are over 2.5 players, field goals of will both teams kick a field goal of 33 yards? I bet no. And the under right now. And Sanders most rushing yards in the game.
Finally, speaking of Tom Brady, you know what my wife said? She didn't know I was going to have Tom Brady on because we don't talk about my business. She doesn't care about sports. Yeah. So when she saw that Tom Brady announced that he wasn't going to broadcast until 2024, take the year off, you know what my adorable wife said?
What'd she say?
Why don't you ask Tom if he wants to intern for a year with you and he could figure out the business? And I was like, I don't think I'm going to ask Tom Brady if he wants to intern for me. I don't know how that would land.
I disagree. I think it's a brilliant idea. And you know what? I might call Tommy and see if he wants to intern at the Action Network. How much smarter will he be in 2024 if he knows everything about how gamblers are thinking about the game? Colin, love this idea. Thank your beautiful wife for me. I'm really looking forward to this. I'll let you, you know what? If you need to borrow him for like some data entry every once in a while for the volume, I'd totally let you do it.
Okay, I'm going to give you a score. 27-23 Chiefs, 28-23 Chiefs, 28-24 Chiefs.
I would prefer it to be 24-23 because I have the under 49.5 and I got the Chiefs at plus 2.5, plus 1.5, and the Eagles at plus 1.5. So if I can get a game that lands on one in either way that is under 49.5, and there's a lot of penalties, and Miles Sanders is MVP, I'm golden.
Chad Millman, Action Network, all odds provided by FanDuel. This was fun. Thanks, buddy.
Good seeing you.